The intensity is at its peak today. So, last night, numerous drones, several hundred, were sent to Russia. Another raid. And quite a few regions were affected. Here they say the following: more than 400 drones attacked 16 regions of Russia plus Crimea. There are reports of a fire at the oil refinery in Nizhnekamsk, and the mayor of the city basically confirms this. However, he didn't provide any details. Ukrainian Telegram channels are showing all sorts of things here. Here too you can see from a distance how it's all happening. And there are also a few shots showing drones flying almost unhindered in Tatarstan. In addition, there was also a drone attack in Moscow. Sobyanin reported that several were shot down. 23 drones were destroyed in total. Plus, 70 Ukrainian drones were destroyed in the Drozdovskaya region. And here is a huge number of regions that were attacked again. I won't list them all so as not to waste time. Why was all this done? Zelensky, 40 days ago, well, it's already been 42 days, announced a program of 40 days of pressure on Russia. Supposedly for 40 days they were going to do something. And Putin would sit down at the negotiating table. But things didn't turn out as expected. It didn't work out, they weren't lucky. But Zelensky is still satisfied anyway. Here's his satisfied face. And he's satisfied, perfectly satisfied. Everything's going well for him. Well, of course. Traveling almost every month somewhere where they feed you and hug you. Plus they even give you money. That's a given. By the way, subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet, because it's wonderful, getting news from my YouTube channel every day. Well, and how does Zelensky justify his actions in general? He says that the war will be increasingly felt by Russians at home. I don't know, to be honest, how logical that is. Let's discuss this in the comments now. But he writes one thing, and reality turns out to be different. Odessa and the region. After the night strike by Russia, it turned out that they were left without electricity and water. I talked about this attack, and I showed the severe destruction there. There are people killed and injured. Well, and Zelensky says that he is satisfied with the 40-day program. He thanks the repair crews. It's important, he says, that real help reaches people everywhere. Then he receives all sorts of reports. He says that everything is fair. Right now we are here because of work deep inside Russian territory. He also reports on the operation against Russian oil refining. The effects are noticeable. The only reason why this is still going on. Russia's unwillingness to end the war. Zelensky repeats this every day. I think now even every hour. So according to Zelensky, the unwillingness to end the war lies solely with the Russian Federation. At the same time, when there was an opportunity to end all this after that whole Anchorage thing, and a lot of people started talking about how they would come to an agreement, well, at least freeze the conflict. Zelensky stepped away from the agreements at the last moment, even if they were preliminary, and he declared not a single step back, the borders of 1991, period. That's just the usual rhetoric. Now he isn't going to give up any cities in Donbass, just like he didn't give up Bakhmut and everything else before. In short, things are turning out interesting for him. Plus, he keeps saying that no matter what happens, we remember. Everything depends on the resilience of our units, our soldiers on the front line. They get loaded into buses, pushed around, and sent to the front lines. You know what they get there, some kind of electronic points, E-points. And then they send these motivated people to the front. Recently, they even mobilized someone who wanted to support the former Minister of Defense. Fedorov was in charge of that very Cordon Maidan. They sent everyone to the front too, because, you know, the more people there, the quieter it gets. Well, honestly, I don't really know about the quiet. Because here they're telling us that there won't be any pause in the shelling of Ukraine. Maybe it's a 40-day program of shelling Ukraine. Or honestly, I just don't understand anymore what's happening on Zelensky's side, and what this action is all about. Here's what they're writing to us. The deputy head of Ukraine's defense intelligence gave an interview, in which he explained what to expect from the Russians. That we should expect an increase and intensification of missile strikes, without any decrease in the rate of shelling. Russia is also carrying out plans to produce a huge number of missiles. The same goes for other types of missiles. They are betting on these new types of drones. They're also working on a Russian version of Starlink, though it's not exactly the same. Journalists are just calling it that. But they already have communication satellites. I think there are about 20 of them or so, and within 4 hours. When these satellites appear above the horizon, the Russian forces have the capability, or rather, they will have it, not now, but in the near future. They will be able to guide their drones very precisely thanks to communication, again with their own satellites in orbit. Russia is increasing its missile strikes. In July, it launched 153 cruise missiles, 198 ballistic and hypersonic missiles. And again, I emphasize that there will be no break. But here I have to ask, where is your pink flamingo? Where is this very Schmidler, or whatever his name is, who claims that thousands of missiles are already ready and millions more are on the way? And where is it? Sometimes they show some footage of this V1 or V2, and then there's some other very strange situation in general. But they're telling us that in the Russian Federation they might reduce the number of missiles aimed at a single target, but they're unlikely to pause. After all, their priority right now is to strike certain targets, and then they'll switch to others, but everything will depend primarily on their production volumes. Ukrainian Defense Intelligence, along with other defense forces, aims to disrupt the enemy's plans. That's how it is. Apparently the 40-day program wasn't the right one, but now it will be done properly. But as for disrupting plans, it's not quite like that. Russia exceeded its missile plan, which is why it resumed this behavior. It seems to me that it's about fulfilling some kind of plans. Well, on a global nationwide level, it would be worth making a statement only after you've fulfilled that plan. I'm not talking about missiles, but about that same Ukrainian Defense Intelligence. I mean, why make a statement before you've actually done something saying, now we're going to do this, we're going to get to work, and everything will go to hell and go up in flames. And then it turns out that's not the case, and you're like, well damn, but we're still satisfied, our work is done, we're very pleased, but it didn't produce any results, like that famous meme. According to estimates from the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine, in terms of the number of launched cruise missiles Kh-101 caliber and Kh-32, the July figure was the second highest after February. Back then, the Russians launched 157 missiles, and in July 153, and on top of that, they exceeded the plan in plenty of other areas too. They overfulfilled the quota for these very Kh-101As by 40%, and for calibers they exceeded the plan by 11%. Cruise missiles were overfulfilled by 100%. And further on, it's all about that. Just there's this huge pile of all kinds of weaponry, and just look at what it is. Here's the description. Just the description of some new things, plus this whole Dawn network, which is an analog of Starlink, runs to several pages in the media. As for Starlink, in 2026, as I said, Russia has already launched 16 satellites into low Earth orbit. And they can only work intermittently when the satellite passes over the territory. When the Russians deploy a full-fledged satellite constellation, this system will work like Starlink. There is already discussion about how to deal with this. Well, that's the way it is. So the plan has been overfulfilled, fulfilled, completed, choose whichever adjective you like. In general, this plan is unappreciated, unachievable, wonderful. And on top of that, there's more to come. Apparently, it's the implementation of that very plan by Zelensky. All the gas stations were destroyed in one night. Actually, it's not in Russia, but in Poltava region. Well, on the night of August 10, Russian drones attacked gas stations in a community in the Poltava region. All the gas stations suffered significant damage. They cannot be restored. So they're telling us, well, my friends...
Last night all the gas stations in the Vypyshnyanska community were wiped out. We have nothing left to restore. They can't be repaired. They were destroyed by Shaheds. 4 households were affected. Thank God there were no casualties. I want to address the residents who live near the gas stations. If the commission hasn't reached you yet, please contact the village council to get help and have your damages recorded. Well, we understand the enemy's logic. First they took out the gas stations in Kharkiv region and Sumy region. No, they've reached Poltava region, so I think the whole region will soon be left without gas stations. And what are we doing? What should be done about this? What I think needs to be done already, I'll tell you in the next video.
That's how things are. So they've hit gas stations in the Poltava, Sumy and Kharkiv regions. And what to do and where to run. Probably Zelensky knows what to do, since he talks so confidently about the 40-day implementation plan. Apparently, everything is fine after all. It seems that everything is going according to plan. Like in the song, everything is going according to plan, yes, about the linden honey. So let's go on and talk about what's being prepared in the Russian Federation. So, Ukraine's military intelligence is planning to disrupt Russia's plans. And the Russian Federation is planning large-scale strikes on Kiev's energy system to cause maximum damage by Independence Day. This is not being reported by Ukrainian sources but came from the Institute for the Study of War. For maximum damage, the Russian Federation may use its strategic reserve of ballistic missiles, and the Russians may be planning to start this very campaign in August. Right now, according to Zelensky, Ukraine is receiving 3 times fewer interceptors. And by the way, during the bombing of Odessa last night, not a single ballistic missile was intercepted. Frankly, I don't understand how, in this state of practically non-existent air defense, they can still threaten others. But apparently, once again, the higher intelligence must possess some kind of super high intellect and is carrying out something beyond our understanding. We're hearing that the Russian Federation could strike energy infrastructure sooner than expected to stop Ukraine from restoring it. Analysts have also warned that Moscow will continue to strike Ukraine's energy facilities during the winter. But honestly, these analysts must be absolute geniuses. During a war, one side bombs and shells the other side's energy infrastructure. This is unprecedented, yet it's happening again. This must urgently be added to all textbooks. Infrastructure is destroyed during war. This is a great discovery. And then Shmihal, however you put the stress anyway, the greatest energy minister in history, declares that Kiev hopes for the war to end as early as this fall. How they hope for this is also absolutely impossible to understand, but according to Shmihal, Ukrainian strikes on the territory of the aggressor state, the Russian Federation, as he says, and Western sanctions should contribute to this. Otherwise, Ukraine faces another winter of Russian attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. But again, this has never happened before, and yet here we are. Ukraine really is facing this again. And now even all these barbershop bros have come out with plucked eyebrows and styled hair. And this very Ukilis is talking about how Ukrainians need to prepare for a hard winter, or as Klitschko said, for hard ground. He himself is of course sitting in a new car, in a new uniform, nowhere near the front, somewhere near Kiev, because he's just another head of a drone unit. Well, of course, just like on March 8th, I remember he filmed a video, splashed his own face. See, he has such a broad, pale face. He splashed it with mud and started talking in some bushes, saying, "We were coming back from a mission with the guys." Coming back from some mission being a drone operator near Kiev? Well, that's strange, but anyway, we know what kind of mission it was. But of course it was really cool when, well, it would be one thing if he actually rolled in the dust, but instead there were these clear splashes like he just sprayed himself and that was it. Well, a soldier is a soldier. According to him, citizens already need to start stockpiling essential supplies. With what money? Ukilis didn't answer because he doesn't have that problem, but Ukrainians need to. How should you prepare? Please, says this very person, if you can, install extra batteries in your building entryway and buy a generator today, if the city authorities haven't already done so. It seems to me that most people are thinking about it, but most just don't have the money because as a result of the most talented actions of the leadership, including this very Ukilis, who, my God, is also some kind of deputy of some Kiev council or something. Ukraine has seen rapid development. It's like a second Switzerland, just from a different angle. And 72% of Ukrainians are below the poverty line. But yes, I remember in the 90s too, the collapse, the devastation, my family was poor. And I was quite a smart boy and understood what needed to be done in situations when there was no electricity, when the heat was turned off. But there were no resources to carry out any of these plans except for some little things. Because what can you do in such a situation except to imagine what kind of EcoFlow battery or something else you might buy for yourself? But honestly, I don't know. By the way, write in the comments how you deal with it. Did you buy a battery? Can you buy one? Or maybe I'm just imagining it, and every resident of Ukraine can afford to create such an energy system that allows them to deal with blackouts as soon as they happen. And not just for a couple of hours, but for a much longer period. Maybe it just seems that way to me. Anyway, write in the comments and we'll discuss it. Next, this very Ukilis says that at the state level, preparations for winter are being carried out quite actively. How exactly? What does the term quite actively even mean? How active is that? Is it 100? Is it 30? Maybe quite actively means 1 or 3 or 5 or what? Well, in general, it's immediately obvious that these people are just so smart and resourceful. But Ukraine, he says, currently doesn't have enough resources and production capacity to fully prepare for the heating season. He's also a major. And he says that looking for generators when the temperature drops to -20 is not the best option. But all that's left is to promote the major to admiral. Not just Captain Obvious. This time it'll be Admiral Obvious. If you're hungry, eat. If you're thirsty, have a drink. If you don't have a home, buy yourself a house with a pool so it looks nice. After all, who needs an ugly house? You definitely need to buy a beautiful one, and buy generators too. A whole Kamaz truck full of generators for the whole house. Just go to the store, get them, and load them into your Kamaz. And you can happily keep going for an indefinite amount of time, or maybe a definite amount depending on how things turn out. These are the kind of talented leaders and advisors we have. Again, well, it would be one thing if he actually gave some valuable advice, if he actually suggested something useful. He could say, as I understand, that a military person might identify a threatened region, the Kiev region or somewhere else. And he could say what to do, or how dangerous the situation is there. But he just says things that everyone already understands, even without these rich boys. Well, I don't understand why they get involved. One thing I understand when they get involved, when they pay and say things like, from the accordion to the 90 Porsche in Rocco, that will take everyone under arms and so on. But when they get involved voluntarily, it doesn't turn out any better either. Anyway, alright. Here we have a few more characters like that, maybe even better. So what? Well, and who will introduce them to us? Zelensky, of course.
Alright, let's hear from the clowns.
Please.
Comrades. Yes, I invited them politely. Look how polite I was. And who should I show here? Well, here's Fedina. Fedina keeps getting on the tan journalist's nerves and telling all sorts of things.
This is a replacement rotation. By the way, I have to remind you that when Zelensky said we needed to mobilize 500,000 soldiers over the course of a year, with a year of mobilization and a year of training, you could have made Rexes even out of the most unprepared recruits, but there aren't any.
Rexov, are those dogs or something? Has Fedina really lost it talking about making Rexovs? Well, I don't know. Well, it's clear. In Latin, it probably means something superior. Like, just as there's Tyrannosaurus Rex, there's also a military Rex. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she said you could make dogs out of all the recruits. Well, that's Fedina for you. She's an intellectual too. I just envy her intelligence and quick wit.
There are no simple solutions for complicated problems. Simple solutions don't work. He, as the commander-in-chief...
Well, if a simple solution doesn't work, then the leadership isn't quite normal. Because the solutions that are usually implemented should be as simple as possible at the moment when those solutions become necessary. If you choose a complicated solution, there's always a risk that it won't be implemented because of a range of different factors that prevent the implementation of that tactic or strategy, or whatever it is you're planning to carry out. But it's simple. Basically, it's a cobbled-together contraption, and that's the only way to describe it.
If no one is on the front line, there will be a breakthrough. Without replacements, soldiers will tire out. If we let them go, who will defend?
Well, Fedina, she's a strong woman. He spends money on all sorts of hideouts for those Nazis, and then he says, oh, we won big. So then there's also Osachuk. Osachuk is now going to lash out at all of us and say that, again, this is aimed at him, his speech in a fancy armchair, probably at his own villa. Against those who speak out, again, against Fedorov's dismissal. And he says there are a lot of draft dodgers there. The main draft dodger is right there in the armchair. That's the kind of draft dodger Rex is, according to Fedina.
There are emotions. There is a search for some kind of miracle about the protest against basically the unwillingness of many to join the army. Among the protesters, there are a lot of people who dodge service and are looking for arguments to justify why they are dodging.
And this is Rex, who has already been made a new recruit, or not? Or what do we have here? What a mutt.
Still searching for a magical fix, like letting drones do the fighting. Well, it's absolutely impossible. That's why we need to prepare for the fact that the Russians will be gathering more people for...
He imitated Zelensky. This word Russians that he uses, along with all those other things like middle strikes and deep strikes, well, it seems only English is perfect. They divide among themselves using false terms. The journalist's reaction reflects all this. It's captivating to watch until the end. Wonderful. The military?
And we need to somehow respond to this, and probably not with some marches for dialogue, but with something else.
That's right. Give him a rifle and send him to the front. Let him fight. Let him set an example. And then his photos will motivate everyone to go. Because, well, he's a great man. A great fighter. And as soon as we see him with some kind of grenade launcher, like a commando from a movie covered in clay, then everyone will rush in from all countries. Absolutely everyone will come back, every single one. Even more than those who left.
A single process of implementation and deconsolidation of actions, and the consolidation of the community around the war.
That's how things are for us. These are our 40-day plans. And in the end, they turn into 400-day plans. And after that, well, we'll see how it goes. Goodbye, everyone.